Welcome to the Belgian coast and its lovely weather. We are live on Facebook and Twitter today from Blankenberg, the main site of the Belgian beach cleanup event. As you can see behind me, there are many people volunteering to clean the beach, to pick up plastic bags, straws, plastic bottles, and actually many of these people are staff members of the European Commission who have decided to join the event and help clean the beach. I'm not alone either. I'm with Commissioner Vella, responsible for environment, maritime affairs and fisheries. You can ask him your question about what the European Commission is doing on Facebook and Twitter. Commissioner, we're very happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm happy as well, Emily.
Can you tell us a bit about what the European Commission is doing to tackle marine pollution?
Yes, we're doing a lot. We're tackling marine pollution domestically within the European Union and also internationally. Domestically, we're moving ahead with the circular economy package, with the plastic strategy. We have the marine strategy framework directive. We have a number of activities going on. Internationally, we're also bringing marine litter on the international agenda. We want to discuss it and we've put it on the G7 agenda. We are hoping to do the same on the G20 agenda. We discussed it at length and we made a number of commitments at the Our Oceans conference. Internationally, we're working a lot with a number of NGOs like WWF. We're working with the private sector like media sector like Sky and so on. So there are a lot of things going on. We're addressing the issue of marine litter at source, and that is why we're tackling it both on land and on sea. I mentioned the circular economy, which for me is the long-term solution at avoiding marine litter, because the idea is not to continue cleaning beaches. The idea is to stop littering, to stop polluting beaches. But we're also addressing the issue at sea, because we are making certain that all ships do not discharge their waste at sea, but they have to take it into port to be gathered, to be sorted, to be recycled.
And I hear there's also a new plastic strategy proposal. Could you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, what I can say is that the plastic is a big issue. Plastic is here to stay with us, fortunately or unfortunately. So the idea is to turn the plastic industry into a more sustainable industry. The idea is to stop plastic waste. Anything which is regarded as plastic waste should be recycled into production. There are many different types of plastics, and every type of plastic has to be addressed differently. So we are moving on, for example, single-use plastic and fishing gear. We are moving on microplastics, which are intentionally added in products like cosmetics and paints. We are addressing microplastics, which are the effect of the usage of plastic material like tires. When you drive, the tires leave behind. We are also addressing the issue of industrial packaging. Industrial packaging will have to be reusable or recyclable by the year 2030. So we're moving along on all these fronts at the same time. Hopefully, legislation is very important, but what we are hoping for is implementation and compliance with all this legislation. So when we legislate, when we come up with directives, when we come up with initiatives, our work doesn't stop there. It's still the beginning, because then we have to monitor and see that everything is being complied with and implemented.
Still a bit of work to do then.
A lot.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we're here in Blankenberg with Commissioner Vella. If you've got some questions about the new plastic strategy, don't hesitate to ask them on Facebook and Twitter. We've got also some volunteers from the European Commission that are helping to clean the beach today. Hi, Alistair.
Hi, Emily.
Can you tell us why you're here today and what you've been doing this morning already?
Well, I think we read more and more in the media and on the internet about how plastics are a threat to the environment. But when I heard about the opportunity to come down to the beach with some colleagues, I jumped at the opportunity to come and see it in real life. And I've just been now down at the beach for maybe 20 minutes and I've already managed to fill quite a lot of this bag with plastic, netting, cigarette butts. It was surprising. I didn't think we'd find so much.
Oh, thanks. Looks like quite a bit, but you still have some room for more this afternoon.
I'll keep going.
Thanks, Alistair. And we've got also Amélie that came with her daughter.
Hi.
Ah.
Oh, you see?
Bonjour Elsa.
Got more cigarettes.
Can you tell us what you've been finding already today on the beach this morning?
Mostly plastics, unsurprisingly. Single-use bottles. Things that at home we reuse, we refill with orange juice or water. And qu'est-ce que t'as trouvé?
What did you find? Qu'est-ce que tu as trouvé, Elsa?
Il faut, quand on fume des cigarettes, il faut pas les jeter par terre, il faut les mettre dans les poubelles.
Voilà. Bien dit.
So
Cigarette butts.
when you throw cigarettes, you shouldn't throw them away, but actually put them in the bins. This is nice advice from Elsa. Did you find anything funny yet?
No, not yet.
Not
Lots
yet.
of
Not a
seashells.
television.
No.
Not yet. Thank you. Thank you for the work. Have a nice afternoon.
Thanks for organising. Thank you.
Very much.
So we're here in Blankenberg. If you want to ask us question about the new plastic strategy or about what the European Commission is doing about tackling marine pollution, please ask them on Facebook or on Twitter. Actually, yesterday we already received some question when we announced this chat. And somebody, Arthur, on Twitter was asking us why not put a tax on all plastics. Is it something the EU is thinking of?
To be honest, I'm very much in favor of green taxation that will help our environment. A plastic tax could be something that we will consider. In fact, it's being discussed at the moment, and it could be an option. But a decision has not yet been taken on this item.
Thank you, Commissioner. And then Stella on Facebook was asking us, why don't you make a law to ban single-use plastic cutlery, for example?
We're going in that direction. As I mentioned earlier on, we have a number of plastic items, and you cannot address the different types of plastics with the same measures, different measures for different plastics. There are some items which we will ban. There are some items which will try and create awareness to reduce their use. There are some items which could, for example, used in products for which alternatives could be easily available, so that we could. But then obviously there are other items which we will still have to use, hopefully to recycle later on. In that, if we're going to recycle any plastic material, then we're also working towards the quality of the recyclate. We have to make certain that any harmful substances, any harmful chemicals are removed from the original products during the design stage, so that we don't continue recycling harmful substances.
Yeah, that's a good idea indeed. About recycling, we had several comments about recycling in general. So, for example, Cesar was saying in some countries you can only recycle hard plastic, not light one. Galabina was saying we need a ban to all unnecessary and not recyclable plastic. We need new methods to use the plastic that is already made and dumped. That's exactly what you were saying. So can you tell us, how about making all plastic recyclable? Is there any chance about this?
Ideally, yes. I think we are trying to make certain that no amount of plastic is wasted, that no amount of plastic is thrown into landfills, that no amount of plastic goes to the incinerators, unless it's the type of plastic which cannot be recycled. So ideally, first of all, we're talking about managing the waste of plastic. But ideally, we should go even beyond that. We should try to avoid plastic waste in the first instance.
I'm sure lots of our users will be happy to read that, because we had many comments in this direction. Another question more related to fishing gear that you were mentioning earlier. Will action to reduce the number of fishing gear ending up lost at sea will be disproportionately costly for fishermen? Something that they could be scared of.
When we talk about costs, we cannot only talk about costs to fishermen, but we have to talk about the environmental costs. We have to talk about the biological cost as well. Unfortunately, these plastic gears, which is lost at sea, not recovered, first of all, I am 100% certain that all fishermen do their best to recover any lost gear. But the problem is twofold about this lost gear. First of all, lost plastic gear turns into microplastics, which is then eaten by the fish, which is then introduced into the whole food chain. But more importantly, the biggest concern is that these fishing gear, they end up as what we call ghost nets. They continue drifting with the currents, they continue catching fish, and obviously fish, turtles, mammals get entangled. In fact, we have embarked on a number of studies to see what the real effects of this lost fishing gear is, which for me is dual. There's an environmental one, because it turns into microplastic, but then there's the ghost fishing effect, which is even worse.
Thank you. Gerrit on Facebook suggests that we also do a river cleanup, because there is where most of the garbage comes from. Any idea for the future?
No, she's totally right, or he's totally right, because when we talk about marine litter, actually it's land litter which is ending up in the oceans.
Right.
And one way of how this litter is finding its way from land to the oceans is through the rivers. So if we manage, and I know that even some countries, both in the European Union and outside the European Union, one way of addressing marine litter is literally by trying to stop this litter in the river.
In the river first, yes. You mentioned other countries. It's true that we had many comments on the fact that actually most plastics in the ocean were coming from countries like China or Indonesia. What are we going to do to address this with these countries?
This is something, when I mentioned what we are doing on an international level, we are taking this up, as I said. We've already discussed it, for example, in the Environmental Ministerial 2 years ago in Japan. We will be taking this at the G7 in Canada, in the G20 in Argentina.
So we're not alone.
We're not alone in this. Obviously, there are some countries which have to do a bigger effort than the others, but we are all together in this. And hopefully, the ways that we are using in Europe, we are trying to promote them, like circular economy. We are trying to promote them overseas as well. For example, you mentioned China. One of the things that we are doing with regards to circular economy, we have what we call circular economy missions, whereby we don't just discuss the circular economy, but for example, in China, I was accompanied by 72 or 75 European companies, all working, all companies have invested in circular economy, promoting their ideas in China as well.
That's good news. Thank you very much, Commissioner. We are here in Blankenberg for the beach club. That is actually a beach club, beach cleanup that is organized internationally by the NGO Surfrider Foundation Europe. Justine, you work for this NGO. Could you tell us a bit more about the initiative?
Yes, of course. So thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So the Ocean Initiative were created by Surfrider more than 20 years ago now. And those litter collections are organized by volunteers on beaches, but as was mentioned just before, actually also on rivers and on lakes. So that was a fair comment. And they organize all over Europe and the world. And the purpose is obviously to raise public awareness around the issue of marine litter. And this year we expect more than 40,000 participants in 40 countries.
Well done.
Yes, thank you. And they're also a way to actually gather data and monitor marine litter. So not just raise awareness, but monitor data on the marine litter, because participants can feel information about what they found in the document or through the Marine Litter Watch application. So it's really great to see so many people here today.
Oh, very happy. And at our ocean conference in Malta last year, if I'm not mistaken, you launched an initiative to tackle marine pollution through plastic bottles.
Yes.
Are there any results you can already share with us?
Yes, so indeed in October we launched this campaign that is called Reset Your Habits, with the aim to create awareness among sectors on the issue and the impact of single-use plastic water bottles, because those plastic bottles are a serial polluter, as we call them, and they are in the top 10 items that we find during those collections, like here today. The campaign aims at generating changing of habits and encouraging people to go for reusable bottles, for example, to go for alternatives. And this campaign, Surfrider, is also working with cities, with institutions, with big festivals to try to find alternatives to single-use bottles. And, for example, to promote tap water and water fountains. Something else that we did is that we published a white paper on this issue with our recommendation, and we very much welcome the latest EU policy development with the EU strategy and the upcoming legislation on single-use plastic. So we will pursue this campaign and continue to push for alternatives so as to end up the plastic pollution of ocean and rivers by plastic bottles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justine. Great initiative. And we have also Sven. So as you can see, this is a huge and very well organized event. This is in the hands of Sven from the Eneco Clean Beach Cup. You've been organizing this for 8 years, so this is the ninth year, if I'm not mistaken.
This is indeed the 9th edition.
The 9th edition. Do you see a trend? Actually, when you clean, are the beaches cleaner than the first year, or do you actually find more litter than before?
Well, I think the amount of litter we find is approximately the same throughout the years. Maybe it increased a little bit, but the awareness has increased. So there are a lot of people who take action on a daily basis. So we try to adapt the event also a little bit on that, because there are more cleaning opportunities there are different organizations and also private persons who try to do it on a daily basis as a sort of personal effort and initiative. But the most important thing is try to create a large platform that creates awareness and to reach the positive message that littering should stop, and we should try to prevent more littering in the future and try to reach that message as far as possible.
Iveta here on Facebook says that this is a great initiative, but to make a real impact, this should be done often and in different places. So if some people watching us today are inspired and would like to launch a similar initiative, a similar event, would you have tips for them?
My main tip is to try to create a positive awareness action, because there's a lot of stuff happening nowadays, and people tend to get lost in the jungle of all the stuff that's coming up to them. And I try to create bridges, try to build bridges, and try to cooperate with organizations, with communities, with governments, and try to seek your way to create as much impact as possible.
And actually, if I'm not mistaken, this is not the first year the European Commission is participating in this cleanup. I think last year and the year before, you also had staff.
It's the third time,
yes.
The third time also of the European Commission. Thank you very much, Sven. Hope it goes
Thanks
well.
for having me. And thank you for
the
being
beach will
here.
be clean later.
I'm pretty sure it will be, because if I see all the people cleaning up, it gives me a very warm feeling.
That's very nice. Thank you, Sven.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A last question from Facebook. Thomas on Facebook is wondering how much of the trash that is found on EU beaches comes from the EU and how much comes from other parts of the world. Any idea?
Yes, I think globally the amount of litter that goes to the oceans, not to the beaches, to the oceans, and then obviously from the oceans, at times it comes back to the beaches. It's between 8 to 15 million tons a year.
That's just too big.
In Europe, our estimate is that plastic litter alone amounts to between 150,000 to 500,000 tons a year. So it's an enormous amount. We get a lot of encouragement seeing the number of volunteers increasing from year to year. But the biggest encouragement that we can get once we see the litter diminishing, once we see not just the volunteers increasing, but the litter decreasing.
Thank you. So I think we're reaching the end of our broadcast here today. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope maybe you've got the last word first for the people watching.
I have two comments to make. First of all, life is all about choices, and here we have a choice when it comes to the oceans. We have to decide. The choice is between being on the part of destroying the ocean or being on the part of protecting the oceans. And I beg everyone to leave the destroying part and to join the protection side. The other choice is what kind of oceans are we prepared to leave to the future generations? Are we prepared to give them polluted, sick, and unsustainable oceans, or should we give them, I think we should give them clean oceans, healthy oceans, and oceans full of resources.
Actually, we just got a last question talking about children,
Yes.
if I may. Andreas says that we also need to educate children so they learn good habits from the early age. What do you think about that? Any specific ideas?
I think we have to educate children, but to be honest, in today's age, I think it's children educating their parents.
We heard Elsa.
Yes, I still remember the days when children used to listen more to their parents. Today, I think parents listen more to their children. So I have faith, and I look at the glass half full, because I think the future generation is much more aware of the need to protect the environment, the biodiversity, and the oceans than we think.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, everyone, for watching today. Thanks for participating in this chat. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you heard more about what the European Commission is doing to tackle marine pollution. Thank you, Commissioner. Thanks to everyone. Have a very nice Sunday afternoon, hopefully with better weather than here.